Okay, so we're going to have our fingers crossed that this goes better than my morning class. I don't know whether you guys had a class in here this morning or in class in this building this morning, but they were working on the roof, and this morning they decided to work directly above my head. And it was ridiculously loud and awful. So we're going to, fingers crossed, have a better luck today. And what we're going to work on today, and part of the reason that I like this as an exercise is it's the first time, thus far, everything that I've given you in class has been a very scripted, okay, we're going to build this, and these are the steps that we're going to use to build this, okay? It comes, as you go through this class, there's a point at which you have to start figuring out what's the order of steps to build what I want to build. And the ultimate of that is obviously I'm designing something in my head, and I have to find a way of representing it, and then I have to build it in Rhino and then do V-Ray, etc. So we're going to kind of break it into a smaller chunk today. We're going to use something that's an existing object, and we're going to try to make it. But each of you is going to pick something different or pick something that works for you or that you're interested in doing. So this is definitely not an object that you design yourself, right? So don't just come up with something on the fly. I want you to go find a product that exists. Hopefully it's some kind of a building product like a window or a door or a kitchen cabinet or something like that. And part of the focus today is getting two-dimensional files from the internet, bringing them into Rhino, using those as a guide, and then building an actual object out of it. So I'm going to work with a window today, or a door. It doesn't make any difference. So I did a quick search for a couple different window manufacturers. Pella is an example of one. Andersen Windows is another example of one. Milgard is a third example. And part of the reason I pulled these up is I want to show you kind of how you go about finding this information. Okay? So if I went to Pella.com, which is the Pella window people, we get a bunch of information about, oh, here's all the windows, and we can look at the pretty pictures, etc. But if you notice up here at the very top, there's something that says for the professional, right? Generally, that's what we're looking for. Something that says for pro, for professional, or whatever. When you click on that, you can get into the professional section. We can pick on windows, and then we get a whole series of windows. So let's say we were interested in the architect windows. We wanted, I don't know, a casement window, for example. Of course, it always goes slow. Once we get to the actual product page, we'll be able to find an AutoCAD drawing that we can download. Okay? And I would sit here, but it's going to take too long. On Andersen, it's very similar. You have to get into the Pro. Let me back up a few. Let's see here. Right up here at the top, there's 4 pros. If you go into the 4 pros, you're going to be an architect. You go into the architects, and then you get into the architectural tools. I think it's the first option. And they actually have a very thorough library of stuff. We are looking for DWG files. So we have 2D detail, 2D elevation. So this, for example, would be the DWG of this. The casement window here, the DWG. Double hung, the DWG. Okay, when you find one that you like, right? So I'm going to do a casement for right now. Okay, I like this one. I'll go ahead and click on it, and it's going to download the DWG file, okay, which is the AutoCAD file. There is also a 2D detail file that I'll show you what it looks like, but chances are you won't end up using it. On the Milgard website, if you go over here, there's the 4 pros. See, I told you all of these websites have a 4 pros section. You're just looking for that. If you pick a particular window, here's a double hung window. You click on the actual window itself. This one's kind of nice because it gives you a little preview of how they open, so you can kind of see what's going on here. Anyway, once you click on that, there's a big section for CAD files. You can see what the various CAD files are. So let's say I wanted a 1-inch setback, and then I can download the DWG there as well. Okay? So we're looking for something that already has a DWG file. And I'm picking doors and windows as an easy example, but if you wanted to do kitchen cabinets or you know, some kind of a kitchen faucet or whatever, that would be okay too. Faucets might be a little bit more challenging to make. This is relatively easy as your first step in doing this. So I've already downloaded this E-Series DWG. I'm going to go ahead and show them in a folder So I can see there's those two Anderson windows. I'll select them both. I'm going to copy them and put them into my flash drive for today. And what are we on? We're on 208. And go ahead and create a new folder for today. This is exercise 208, fall of 2016. And we'll go ahead and paste those in there. There's the two DWG files. I can go ahead and just open it by double-clicking on it, let it open in AutoCAD if I wanted to, which would give us a preview of what it would look like. Not necessary because we can drop it straight into Rhino, but I just want to show you that if you double-click on it, it's going to open AutoCAD. And it's going to give us, that's fine, it's going to give us a bunch of different window sizes available. Obviously, a window manufacturer is going to have more than one size window, right? We're not going to build all of these windows. We'll build one of the windows. Okay? So let's go ahead and jump over into Rhino. I have a brand new Rhino file that's a new object, large inches. And I'm going to go ahead and go to File, and I'm going to go to Import. And when I go to Import, I want to go find that file that I just downloaded. And there it is. I'm going to open up the elevation first. Okay, so we'll go ahead and say Open. And it's going to give me a bunch of options here. Right? Import unreferenced layers, import unreferenced blocks, etc. Basically, all of these are fine. We'll go ahead and say OK. And it will then bring in those three drawings. Those happen to be the same look of what I saw in AutoCAD. Okay? So as you can tell, you don't actually have to do anything in AutoCAD. I just like to point it out. Okay? So here's the windows. And if I were looking at these windows, right, we could get a sense for which one would be interesting to make. Okay? So let's take, let me just see these. Do this, is that? Let's do a 4.0. Do a 4.050. Kind of a nice. So if I want to do that window, for example, right, I'm going to go ahead and just move this by typing move away from everything else. So I've taken, that's the window I'm going to make. All the rest of this stuff I can press the delete key and get rid of. If it won't delete on you, sometimes you have it embedded in a block. So if I go to Block Manager, we can see that sometimes there's other stuff that comes in with our files. Right? There's also a bunch of hidden block definitions here. We can get rid of all of these because we don't need any of them. Let's delete them. See if we can get rid of a few more. There we go. Just getting rid of extra stuff. If you don't end up doing that, it's not the end of the world. So there's my window. Let's go ahead and move this so that it's at point 0, 0. And if I look at it in the perspective view here, zoom, selected, there it is. Okay? So this is the window that I want to make. And I can choose to have the little individual panes of glass. I can choose not to. We'll get to there first. I'm going to start with just the basics of the window. Okay? So I have this basic line drawing. Let's come over to my layers really fast, and let's organize my layers a little bit. Okay? Let's make layer 1. My mouse is really terrible today. Let's make layer 1 construction lines. And let's take all of these lines and let's put them on that construction lines layer. And then let's get rid of all of these extra layers here. Let's make the construction lines layer active. And then let's make one new layer, and we'll call this window frame to start. OK. So what I have is a bunch of individual lines that I want to start working with. Okay? The easiest way of dividing this up would be to draw a rectangle. And so I'll use the rectangle corner to corner, or excuse me, rectangular plane. And I'm also going to switch into the shaded mode so that I can see that I've, in fact, drawn something here. Okay? Let me change the color because it's harder for you guys to see it when it's in that purple. Okay, so I have this rectangle, okay, this plane, and I'm going to use a command called split. So if I go up to, I think it's under transform, no, it's under edit, split, okay, or if I type split, it's going to say select objects to split. I'm going to select my surface. I'll press enter. Then it says select cutting objects. I'm going to cut with this and that, this and that, and I'll go ahead and hit enter. And what this does is it takes my surface where I had one continuous surface and it breaks it into pieces. Okay? So now I can start with, say, this outer rim here, right there, and I could extrude surface. And let's go up by maybe, I don't know, 1 inch. Oops, sorry. I need to go up, and I need to make sure that it's set for solid. Yes. Let's go up by 1 inch. There. And I'm also going to extrude this going down. And we'll go down by negative, oh, I don't know, 2.5 inches. Something like that. All right, so I started to build a little bit of a frame there. Does that make sense? Okay. So now let me take this piece, right, which is the first frame of the window here. Let me extrude surface. Let's go negative 1 inch there. So now I have a little frame. And let's take this piece as well, and let's do negative 1 inch there. All right, so I have those two. Let's take these two pieces, and let's just move them vertically by negative 0.5 inches so that they end up halfway inside of that frame. Okay, so you can see already pretty quickly that I was able to start to build out what this window looks like just by doing a few little extrusions, okay, because I split that basic surface. Let's offset this surface. Offset SRF. Okay, notice that it's telling me which direction by those little arrows. I'm going to do both sides, so it's going in both directions, and my distance is going to be, let's say I wanted it 1/2 inch thick, so it would be 0.25 for half. And we'll go ahead and hit enter, and it gives me both halves. See, like that? Okay. I can do the same thing over here for this side. And I'm going to delete input is set to yes. Right? That means it's going to get rid of the original once it builds the panes of glass. Okay? So now I have the panes of glass identified, right? The frame of the window identified. There it is. The outer frame set up. And so now I need to start kind of organizing it a little bit. So this was a really simple window to do. Okay, there wasn't much to it. But let me go ahead and spend a little bit of time organizing this. Okay, so I had something called window frame. Let's make something called window glass. And yeah, that'll probably work. Let me make one layer called just window. And this is a 4050. Take these two and put them as a sublayer on window here. And let me go ahead and start to assign a few materials. So we know that the glass needs to be assigned. So let me go to the material library here. Let me go ahead and load material. And there we go. Go ahead and load glass. I'm just doing basic glass. Let me assign that to my window glass layer. And then we also load up a material. So let me load material, and I don't know, for right now, let's go ahead and load up wood. And we do a walnut. And let me apply material to layer for the frame. And then let me switch this into rendered mode so you can kind of see. Oops. I didn't change my glass layers yet, so let's make sure that they end up on the glass layer. Java declare. There we go. And so you can start to see I built that up. Okay? It was relatively simple. I took a surface, I split it, I did some extrusions. Okay? So in terms of the set number of steps, it wasn't that hard. Okay? I can increase the complexity of this a lot as I go forward. And I'm going to do another example. So you're not done by any means watching me do it. I just wanted to point out that a large part of this is conceptualizing how am I going to go about making this, right? Because I could make it in an entirely different way. So let me take this as the basics and let me start to add a little bit more realism to it. Okay? So I still have this as my basic, but let's say that I wanted to add some mullions that were part of the window, right? Give a little bit of depth. Okay? I'm going to turn off the construction lines. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and delete those because they've. Go ahead and delete those. We can get rid of the default layer here, and I'm going to call this layer mullions, and we'll make that layer active. I shouldn't have deleted that layer just yet. Give me 1 second. There. Okay, can't type. Mullions. Okay, so let's say that I wanted to add a little complexity. Obviously, I have the grid pattern already established, but they're not thick enough to be the actual mullions just yet. Okay, so let me take this first piece right there, and I'm going to go ahead and offset this curve. So I'll type in offset. Oops, not surface. Offset curve. Apparently it's just offset. There we go. Distance, let's do 3/8. And we'll go ahead and select for both sides. There. So now I have kind of what that would look like. Let me do the same thing for this piece. B for both sides. And I have that. Okay? I'm going to copy this for these other pieces. I'm not going to build it more than once. I'm just going to build it once. Okay, so now I have those curves in place. Let's go ahead and start with a little bit of a surface here. And I'm going to do a rectangular plane. And we'll say, let's go from right here over to right there. And let's go from right here to right. Oh, let me turn on intersection. There we go. So I'm starting simple. I'm just working on this one end over here, like that. Let me go ahead and extrude these surfaces down. Actually, before I do, let's give it a little bit of a reveal. Let's take this surface and this surface, and let's move them. Now, notice I'm going to pick vertical because I want it to go in the vertical direction. I'll move it vertically by 1/8 of an inch. So we'll go negative 125 inches. Oops. Point to move from. Sorry. There we go. I'm moving down. I want it to be half that distance. So we'll do maybe 0.125 inches. Sorry, negative 0.125 inches. There it is. So all I did was I dropped that surface down a little bit. See that? All right. So now that that's done, let's go back and look at this in shaded mode so we can see it a little bit easier. Okay. Now let me take this piece and I'm going to extrude surface, and we're going to go down negative 0.75. That's going to make it stick out the same amount on the top and the bottom of the glass. Okay, so there that is. We'll do the same thing here. This time I'll just pick this corner like that. Okay, so now I have a little reveal step down to there and another reveal that steps down to the glass. Okay, I could increase the complexity here yet again I could do a chamfer surface. We'll do a distance of, let's do 0.0625, which would be a 1/16 of an inch. And I could do this to that. Get rid of, I had an extra surface there. See how I beveled that edge? All right, I could do the same thing here, like that. Could do the same thing here, like that. Do the same thing here, like that. A little problem because that didn't quite connect. So let me do one more trim with this and with this. And we'll delete those two pieces. And I have to build in a little bit more surface right in there because of that intersection. So we'll just do a surface from 3 or 4 corner points. We'll go there, 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 and one more right here. All right, to fill that in. So I just added a little bit of a bevel to that to add to the overall look. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about you can start with the most basic, simple, right? Couple extrusions, you get your windows, and then you can add progressive layers of details. And one of the advantages to this setup is that if you need a window that's quick, right, you build the basics of the window. You build the frame, you build the glass, and we call it a day. Then you can go back. Remember, we can use the block references like we've done before. You can go back and add more to it, right? You can also set it up so that you could turn on or off the mullions. So if I move the mullions as a sub-layer, right, I could choose to turn them on or turn them off. Okay? I could take this a step further, and I could add trim around the window. Right? So let me go ahead and say, I'm just going to use a box corner to corner. Right? Let me start here. And this would be at 4 feet, comma, 5.5 inches. There it is. And we'll do it a height of 1.5 inches. And there's the start of my trim. Right, we'll do the same thing along this side here. We'll say at 6 inches, comma, negative 5 feet. Enter. Right. Let me take this piece and I'm just going to copy it from there over to here. Make the head a little bit longer. Let me scale, oops, 1D for one direction. And I'll go from the middle to there, and I'll pull it out to be like that. So now that head goes across. Let's add a little sill at the bottom. So this was at 4 feet, comma, negative 1.5 inches. There we go. And let's have it stick out a little bit more. Let's go maybe 3.5 inches. Scale 1D. And I can pull this all the way out like that. And then I could take this piece and copy it to right there. And now we'd have, if we were looking at it, what the exterior trim would look like on the window. So the point is I can keep adding to it, starting with the basic piece. So really the important takeaway for what I want you to work on today is that you have to start figuring out how you work and how you create something. Okay? And so part of the reason that I went rather quickly through this is every single command and tool that I used today to do what I just did is all things that you've all done. I didn't use anything new. Okay? Well, maybe scale 1D. Maybe you haven't done that specifically. But you've done chamfer, you've done extrude, you've done split, you've done trim, right? All of those things you've done. So this is very much something that you can do on your own, but you have to think about what's the right order in which you start to do it. Okay? So I want you to really to sit down and kind of sort through that, because that's how you start to learn to use Rhino on your own rather than just following a scripted set of steps. Does that make sense? Okay. So once I get to this point, and I've added as much detail as I can, my guess is that you can work on one window all day today and just keep adding layers of detail, and however far you get, that's good. But I do want to touch up a few things before I get too far. I'm going to rotate 3D, and I'm going to pull this so that it's up in the third dimension. I'm going to move this whole thing so that this point right here is at 0, 0, 0, which will make inserting it down the road better. I'm going to make sure I clean up my layers, so we'll get rid of those. Say yes. Let me make a new sublayer for window exterior trim, and I'll put all of this as the exterior trim. Change object layer. There we go. Now we need to actually make sure that all the materials are applied correctly. So if I went back and say I wanted this exterior trim, I'm going to turn off. See, this is what I had all day. I'm going to turn off the mullions for right now. Let me go back into my materials here, and I'm going to make the wood go on the trim layer as well. We can then look at this in rendered form. Okay, and if we look carefully, we can see that my texture mapping isn't really quite right. Okay, so let's correct the texture mapping. Let's take this top piece, right? I'll come over to my properties. I'll go to my texture mapping. We'll apply a box mapping, bounding box, world, capped yes. All right. And I don't like this material. Let me change it to something with a little bit more grain so you can see it. I don't like that either. I want something that you guys can see better here. Load material. There we go. So now we can see that the grain is going the correct direction, and that actually looks like a piece of wood, right? If I took this side piece, I would do a box map on it. Okay, so we'll do the same thing with a bounding box. We want it to be world. We want it to be capped. Now it's going in the correct direction. And why didn't... I applied it to the object instead of to the layer here. There we go. Okay, so I don't like the texture mapping on that. Doesn't appear to be applied correctly. So let me go ahead and let's delete that. Let's do a box map. Bounding box, world, yes. Let me show the mapping. I'm going to turn on the gumball here. There we go. Now it's going in the right direction. And go back to this. Let's do x equals y equals z. And let's change the scale to be, let's go more like 2. All right, so there it is. Now the nice thing is, once I get the box mapping the way I like it there, I can match this one to this one, right? So I can come over here, I can say I want to match the mapping to that one. Now that mapping is identical to this mapping. Likewise, I could say, oh, this one here, I want to match the mapping to that one. this one here, I want to match the mapping to say this one. Okay, so once you get it set once, it's easy to copy it to the other pieces. Okay, so now I have those. I'm getting lazy. I don't want to do wood, but let's see for the window here. Let's load up just like a white plastic for vinyl. So I'm going to go to load material. And I'm going to go to plastic. Okay, so here I would like a white plastic. I don't have one. Let's load black plastic. There it is. We can apply material to layer, which would be the window frame. There we go. I really don't like black. It's ugly. So let me look at, and this is part of why we started talking about materials, let me look at it and change from black to white as they're bowling above us. And now I have the white window instead of the black window. So I'm using a similar material and just changing the color. Okay? Let me get rid of that map so that we don't see it. And there it is. Okay? So I'm trying to build out something along these lines. All right, so once I have it set up the way I want it, right, we could do a quick render. I'm going to change, under the V-Ray options, I'm going to change my environment so that it's not black, but it's white instead. And then we'll go ahead and give it a test render. Let me zoom in on it. Select, zoom, selected. Let's go ahead and render and see what happens here. All right, so it gives me a nice little window there. I know you can't really see the glass. It's because we have no sky just yet. Okay, and that's to be expected. So once I have this, I'm going to go ahead and save it. And so this will go to today's folder. Oops, sorry, wrong thing here. Okay. This will be Anderson. And since this is the JPEG image, I'm adding _sample to it. Okay? So I have the sample image. I need to save my actual window. So let me go ahead and save this piece. So this is the Rhino file. I'm going to put this into today's folder as well. And so this is going to be Anderson, casement window. And we'll go ahead and save it. Save. Now I used a couple materials in here. One material was the white plastic. And let me go ahead and rename this so that it's not confusing. Let's call this plastic white. And I'll go ahead and say OK. So I have plastic white. I use glass. I use plastic white. And I use the fur VG. So for each of the materials that I used, I'm going to pack those materials. So let me go ahead and right-click and say Pack Material. And this will keep it with my file, just in case. So I'll go into today's folder. And I'm going to pack this one. I'm going to pack the glass next. Pack material. Perfect. So now that I have all of those done, I'm going to save this one more time. And this has to do with how we're going to post it. Okay, so you may have noticed on the website, if you come over to resources, there's something called the Rhino Blocks library. Right? If you go into the Rhino Blocks library, there are a bunch of things that people have already made, right? That you are more than welcome to use down the road. Some of which are lighting fixtures, which is certainly nice, right? But there's faucets. These are landscape ones that I've made that you can use. And there's a variety of other things that people have made, including doors and windows. If we go into the doors and windows, you can see lots more examples of doors and windows that people have made. You are more than welcome to use any of these in any of your future projects should you want to. Okay? So you're going to post this such that you could use it, or somebody else could download it down the road. Obviously, some are better than others, but you're going to end up posting it there as well. So when I create a new post, I'm going to go to New Post. And I'm going to call this Anderson 4050 casement window. Okay? And over here on the right side, if you keep coming down, you'll see a category called Rhino Blocks. Right? I'm going to tag in here what this is. So I'm going to come down here and say this is a window, and it's a casement window. So I'm going to make sure that those are tagged correctly. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom and set my featured image as the JPEG of my windows. So let me go find it. Hold on a second. It's right there. Let me set it as the featured image. There it is. Now I need to actually upload the files. Okay? And the easiest way of doing that is to go back to my folder for today, and I'm going to zip up a bunch of stuff into the zip file. So I'm going to select my Rhino file. I'm going to hold down Control and select my 3 materials. And I'm also going to hold down Control and select the sample file. So I've got all of those selected. I'll right-click on them and say Send to Compressed Folder. And I can rename this to be Anderson Casement Window. Something like that. Okay. Now that I have that zip file, I can go ahead and upload that zip file. So let me come back to Add Media. I'm going to go to Upload Files. By the way, I don't know whether you guys have seen this before, but you can just drag on top instead of going and finding. So if you have the window open, you can just drag the file to upload. Okay, so there it is as the zip file. I'm going to click on Insert into Post. And there's the link. Now, it would be nice if I made this look a little bit better. So let's say download. And let's make that have a little bullet point or whatever. Okay? So there's the files that you would download. I'm going to go ahead and click on Publish. Right? Remember, I have the categories set correctly. And now this is on the website such that anybody else could download it and use it. Okay? So your goal today is to create some kind of a building component, like a window or a door or something along those lines. I would be okay if you wanted to try to do a piece of furniture. That would seem reasonable as well. But it needs to be something that's already made, something that you can get an AutoCAD file from. Okay? So I know it's a lot to take in, but I also think this is a great first day where you really start to figure out how to do it by yourself. And I think it's really important that you take that big leap and start to figure it out. Obviously, I'll be here. I'm happy to sit down and help you strategize with how do you make something. But I think this is a good first day.